But I will give it this. By being able to go through this and without any of the explicit instruction that would have made this effective, to see these students actually figuring out how to use these web searches, engaging in it, and developing rather impressive fonts of information that they demonstrated the best during the interview, also makes me kind of question what was exactly going on. It makes me wonder if this was an effective tool using the internet, using this Artemis program, which scaffolded all their directed questions, all their ability to search things out and communicate with their partners, but they weren't given the assignments or the artifacts that would have been engaging for them to demonstrate a wider breadth of the knowledge that they gained, because they were talking about how the artifacts themselves were very simple. They were mostly recollections, explanations that they encountered, rather than taking it a step further, such as, why would you not want to get sucked into a black hole, in which, let's see here, it was between Jamie and the interviewer, in which he was able to expand that it basically sucks you in, condenses you into a string, and that would probably be very unpleasant, that you would probably be gone and dead in a second, so you wouldn't even feel much. But that's an example of, during the interview, he was able to take it that much further. So they were able to use the internet to get this information. They were able to use it effectively at times when they were engaged, and despite the lack of explicit instruction that was in place. This gives me a lot of hope, especially for the internet as a medium, because it's something I'm very enthusiastic about, something that I believe is an excellent medium to engage students, because they're encountering it so often, and that's part of what they live and experience on a daily basis. What I think this experiment needed more than anything else was refinement. It has all the basis, all the ideas in place to be an excellent one, but it's missing a few steps. They needed to explicitly teach the students how to do refined searches and how to expand their search terms to encompass more of a wider area to focus on what they're looking for. And they also need to teach the students how to critique the websites themselves. It's not just the images, it's not just the words on the page, it's not necessarily that 3 websites line up with all the facts, but all those are indications that it may be a proper website to use, maybe an excellent one to use, but they still need to teach students of what is going to be involved. How can you identify what is a good one? Do they have linked resources? Do they have links that demonstrate their citations where they have this information from? Or is it actually a a primary source? Is this actually a researcher who has done the work to study this sort of thing? Now, a lot of the grade level material that they're going to be finding, that they'll be able to understand, is not going to be a primary resource, at least in grade 6, with some of these things, because black hole theory, for example, is incredibly complex, and I honestly, at the scholarly level, couldn't understand most of it. I've tried to read it. It's not easy. So that needs to be addressed as well. Not only that, but they also need to address how you could use Artemis as a stepping stone that could lead further into students being able to investigate this independent of a scaffolding program like this. It needs to be able to take it that next step. Draw out Artemis out of the way and bring them into either Google itself, which honestly may be a little bit overwhelming as is, or else to see if they can find a article resource or an article database that they can use for their school if they happen to have access to it. Maybe a nicer option will be a bit more refined, like what we have at UWO. They needed to take it a little bit further. It seems slightly haphazard. They didn't consider what would be involved. Not only that, but they needed to also address the fact that the students may have had prior knowledge that wasn't quite accurate. They needed to bring it in together and sort of do more than just internet searches, more than just internet learning. They needed to take it, okay, class, what do we know about this subject? What are we sort of thinking about? What are our preconceived notions? And go from there. That way they could address what is incorrect, what needs to be addressed, or what actually should be in place before they move on to the internet side of things. It was a good study in many ways, that what it was trying to do. I liked what it was trying to do, but it didn't focus enough on the sections that it needed to actually bring it into the realm of a properly scaffolded study or a properly scaffolded teaching environment, because it didn't address the things that the students needed to know to ensure they needed to know to be effective researchers. I think that's the major flaw in this. It went only so far and assumed the students already knew some of these things, which I think is the biggest block between this being an interesting study and one that was effectively addressing how internet could affect students' lives and how they could actually use it as a resource tool, and whether or not it would actually be engaging and effective. Had it been taken that next step further, you might have seen better results. You might have seen further understanding. This would be something that needs to be addressed in another experiment, of course, another one that would actually study this sort of things, more scaffolding, that sort of thing, taking it perhaps that step further to eventually withdraw Artemis away and teach them how to do it without that program. But as things stood, I think the biggest or the most effective part of this study was the use of Artemis itself as scaffolding for the students to be able to understand what is going on. And by using Artemis in that way, it allowed them to get as effective results and effective understanding as they did, because it kept them focused, it kept them more organized with regards to what they're doing, but it didn't go that extra step that it needed to really address all the issues in the entire situation that could arise from using the internet as a tool for information. That needs to be done. That's the step that I think it needed to address the most, because there's so much data out there, it's easy to get lost. And although they may live in the internet world, they may not know how to search it properly.